everybody. I'd like to talk for a minute or two about not talking. There's a saying when it comes to manners, when it comes to humor, that you don't say the quiet part out loud. You don't say to somebody, oh, I like your shoes because I didn't like your shoes yesterday. You just say, I like your shoes today. You don't say to someone, why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? And then say, oh, because that's why everyone crossed the road to get to the other side. That ruins the joke. That's the quiet part, which is meant to stay quiet. However, there are times that the quiet part should be said out loud, specifically when you have feelings towards somebody that you think you need to work out. In this week's parsha, we have Yosef and his brothers. And Yosef's brothers are jealous of him. They're angry at him. They hate him because of the preferential treatment that he gets from their father. The parsha tells us that Yaakov showered Yosef with a little extra affection. Ki ben zikunim mulo. But he had a reason. He was a ben zikunim. He was somehow a child of his old age. There was something special about when Yosef's birth that made him a little more special to Yaakov. And it says mi bet mikol banav. He loved him more than the rest of his sons. As a father to a son, he showered upon him a certain type of affection. But it was affection that had a purpose to it, a reason. When the brothers saw what happened, it just says vayiru echad. They saw that he loved Yosef, but it says more than his brothers. Not more than that Yaakov loved Yosef more than the rest of his brothers. Not that Yaakov loved Yosef more than the rest of his sons, which is how it's actually communicated about Yaakov himself. What this is showing us is that Yaakov had one certain set of reasons for why he was showering Yosef with a certain extra amount of love, and that had to do with his relationship to Rachel, who of course had passed away, and the brother's perception, which was just choosing one brother over the next. And perhaps had they spoken this out, it would have been much more effective. They would be able to solve this problem, reconcile in an effective way. Yet the pasuk tells us, "V'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom." They couldn't speak to him. They couldn't even speak to him to try to reconcile any type of peace. It was impossible for them to speak, and that is where the problem lies. The fact that there was something quiet, there was a feeling inside of them, "V'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom." They did not just speak to him. Perhaps if they would have spoken to him, they could have reconciled with him. Similar to if Yaakov would have spoken to Esau in the previous parsha. Maybe that would also give him a chance to reconcile. Yaakov wouldn't have to run away for 20 years. What does that have to do with Chanukah? So in Chanukah, there is a part about the quiet part being said out loud, or in this case, the inner part coming out into public. There's two parts of the Chanukah story that we talk about. We talk about the miracle of the victory of the war, and then the victory of the miracle of the Chanukah lights. And the question is there a connection between those two things, the miracle of the oil and the miracle of the war? And the answer is, of course, they both represent this idea of something which is smaller going beyond its potential. One in the war, the small army defeating the larger army, in this case, 1 day of oil going to 8 days of oil. But one seems miraculous and one seems a little bit less so. Right? The menorah seems completely miraculous, but not necessarily the war. And the quiet part of the war, so to speak, is that even though it looked like a regular military victory by a really extra prepared, strategic, smaller army, it actually was something greater. It was considered to be a miracle from Hashem to help them out. But that's the quiet part. It's not said out loud. And the purpose of the miracle of the menorah, of the oil, is to show that both miracles are one miracle. The miracle of the battle was in fact miraculous from Hashem, just as the miracle of Chanukah was, the menorah was as well. So this teaches us, I guess, obviously a very important lesson. That sometimes it's important to tell people the way that you feel. Sometimes it's important to say the quiet parts out loud in order to reconcile. And sometimes when there's something that's quiet, a certain underlying thought or feeling that you have, maybe it's something miraculous going on, or some sort of emotion, it's important to be able to say, you know what, maybe this is real, maybe this is something bigger and greater, and maybe try to find a way to give it purpose and to look for the small things in our lives and see how they might be a sign of something which is much bigger. Shabbat Tov, and Chanukah Sameach again.